Today marked Igor Sherbakov's fourth visit to Newcastle, his mission to discuss trade and business possibilities and outline the benefits of information exchange between Australia and the USSR.
There are some technological and scientific achievements which we can exchange for mutual benefit. For example, we have quite interesting projects of purifying technical waters after use.
Valuable medical technology is also likely to be exchanged. Already there are moves underway to send teams of Soviet doctors to Australia to study bone marrow transplant techniques.
We're trying to gain support for the training of Soviet doctors in Australia in the techniques of bone marrow transplant so that they can return to the Soviet Union and work with the victims of Chernobyl.
Hundreds of Chernobyl victims now suffer radiation-related diseases like leukemia. Bone marrow transplants offer their only hope of survival. But bringing Soviet doctors to study in Australia isn't cheap.
Just for their living expenses alone, we're looking at about $50,000.
Organisers are hoping for trade union and community support to begin the program within the next 6 months.
Police combed streets around the New Lambton shopping centre hunting for a man in his early 20s who bailed up a businessman at knife point outside the Commonwealth Bank, stealing a payroll worth several $1,000s. Despite help from a number of witnesses, police are still searching for the man tonight. At the time, he was wearing a dark nylon jacket and jeans. His victim said he had a thin face with heavy stubble. Less than 2 hours later, police were called to the Esso service station at Sandgate, where a woman attendant had been menaced with a frightening weapon.
It was just what appeared to be a handheld spear gun and left a short time later with a small amount of money.
Police are still searching for that man. He was last seen heading towards Ferry Road.
They came from as far away as Taree and Murrurundi, from the southern reaches of Lake Macquarie, the coalfields and Newcastle. 288 competitors representing the 9 zones. Boys and girls ranging in ages from 8 to 11 battled out the 4 divisions, with the first 4 place getters in each section winning their way through to the New South Wales Championships in Sydney. The 8, 9 and 10 years divisions raced over a 2-kilometre course, while the seniors struggled over 3 kilometres. And struggle they did, as the course set by the organisers was akin to climbing the Himalayas. A very steep start that sorted quite a few out, and the run home a torturous uphill gradient that had more than one young athlete gasping for air. While others enjoyed the challenge, all in the name of fun.
Participation is the key, right from school level up to state level.
And some tremendous support from the schools themselves?
Certainly, yes. Nearly every school is involved in cross-country at a school level and zone level, and the better kids go on to regional and state representation.
The Manning Zone won the day from Port Stephens, who were second, and the Upper Hunter third. Also a couple of outstanding individual performances. Jackie Hodges came home strongly to win the 10 years girls section, and Cessnock's Graham Fox, although absolutely exhausted in the end, was a good winner of the 8-9 boys.
Newcastle is an industrial city, but there are no off-site facilities in the Hunter region for the treatment of industrial waste. Last year, the Cleanaway company successfully tendered to build a treatment plant. It wants to construct it on Kooragang Island, but its proposal is subject to council approval. Today, a draft environmental impact study was released by Monsell Engineering Consultants. The report favours the Kooragang site because of its proximity to 88% of waste-producing industry in the area. The report also favours a waste facility without the contentious incinerator. According to a spokesperson for Cleanaway, the proposed incinerator is not financially viable and is no longer an option. The draft environmental impact statement has been released for public comment.
Grand opening's always a last-minute affair, and the hectic pace at Fanny's this afternoon was certainly true to form. The Wharf Road nightclub has had a variety of operators and quite a few facelifts, but this refurbishment is easily the most dramatic. Its owners say the new look is international and there's plenty of sparkle, but they haven't lost touch with tradition. The new look Fanny's retains a few touches of elegance. Owner Warren Druin is also making something of a comeback to the Newcastle nightclub scene. He says Fanny's reopening has been long anticipated.
Oh, I think so. It really has been in the forefront of entertainment since 1979, and we hope that it will continue to do so for the next 10 years.
Special guest Molly Meldrum will top tonight's VIP list. The party is expected to go on well into the early hours.
Using the latest in Swedish technology, RTA workers have completed the 1.5 kilometre wall in just 4.5 days. It's the longest of the 3 built so far in the state, costing more than $300,000. The RTA believes the design will more than prove its worth.
Because it's got a 200mm high curb, it will break the impacting wheel underneath the car and hold the car against the barrier, so that it slides down with the wall and stays in its same lane, and so it won't bounce out or roll over.
Engineers claim a truck hitting the barrier at high speed would move it less than a metre and do little damage to the flexible cordon of blocks.
If a very heavy vehicle may crack a block or something, a high-ab truck can just come along with a spare block, take one out, put one in. In the event of a small vehicle hitting it and just a small bend in it, it can be just pushed back in the line again.
But not everyone is happy. The Big T Roadhouse claims its business will be devastated because southbound traffic will no longer be able to turn into the station.
It'll have heaps of effect. I'd say the employment will be cut in half because no business. We have to cut the staff down, and the truck drivers, they won't go right down to the end and then come back again, so we'll lose half of them, I guess.
The RTA says it was the danger caused by trucks crossing the road to get into the station that made the wall necessary in the first place.
About the only exciting thing in the match was an altercation towards the end between Simon Cottrell and Grant Kruger. With order restored and a Canberra victory, it was a hostile Falcons coach who made his way to the locker room.
It was pathetic, I thought it was one of the worst played games that I've seen. I thought our turnovers were abysmal. I thought the way we played was appalling, and the only thing that matched our mediocrity were the officials.
The Falcons fought gamely in the first quarter with Michael Johnson coming off the bench to hit a monster, but the General Phil Smythe steadied the cannons. The Falcons shot themselves in the foot in the second term to score only 13 points, while Canberra kicked away to lead handsomely at the long break. Although the Cannons were nearly as bad as the totally out-of-form Falcons, they managed to convert some opportunities and in the end ran out winners by 19 points to stay in touch for a spot in the playoffs. Sick and tired of carrying the can for his playing staff, Ken Kohler's had enough.
It's time to tell some people what I think, I suppose. That's all. I'm letting them know what I think and what their responsibilities are, and I consider that they're letting the program down.
The Prime Minister's Cup was up for grabs between these two teams, but Doug Marsini and Paul Foster set the stage, a poor finish to a good build-up. However, Australs did find the back of the net. Namoff crossed to the area, Ralph Mayer got a good touch to Darren Stewart, but he was ruled offside and the goal went begging. Both sides mustered some excellent moves forward, but neither could finish. Meredith this time over the top. Stewart was trying everything up front, and Tony Gianasca had to be on his mettle all match. Captain Howard Tredinnick fell foul of the referee for an over-vigorous tackle on Steve Vanzetti and received a yellow card. Right on half-time, Bommy Namoff had a crack, but again it sailed over the top. Not much happened in the second half, although Craig Carter was put to the test by Stan Duckor and survived. Final score, BHP Austral 0, Canberra Metros 0.
The Liberal candidate Peter Blackmore has spent the last 9 days waiting by the phone for a result. This afternoon he was a step closer to victory.
It was just one of great relief, immense relief. One moment you're in front, on the Saturday night of the election you were behind, you've crept in front and you just kept thinking, well, what else can go wrong now?
The contest for the marginal seat of Maitland intensified today. After a count and a recount last week, the matter ended up in the New South Wales Court of Appeal this afternoon. The Labor Party used the marginal seat of Maitland as a test case. The Liberals' Peter Blackmore was 348 votes ahead on Friday night. The Labor Party's last hope was to mount a challenge over the precious informal votes. It hoped to have the informal votes in each electorate included in the official count. Although the Labor Party's legal challenge failed today, the Liberal candidate Peter Blackmore has not officially been declared the winner. That won't happen until the Electoral Commissioner gives his approval. The process may be further delayed if the Labor Party appeals to the High Court.
Well, that option is available, of course, but somewhere down the line we hope that sanity does prevail. Court challenges are a very costly affair. That it costs a lot of money and somebody's got to pay that. I certainly hope that that's it. I think the people of the electorate would be sincerely hoping that that's the finish of it, that we can settle down and conduct business.
Put a chocolate chip cookie in front of anyone and you'd probably find them eating it. But put a chocolate chip cookie in front of the kids from Cahaiba Primary and they'll mine it.
By using a chocolate chip biscuit, we're going to see if we can understand about mining and looking after the environment.
Even in the face of equipment failure, they sent those chocolate chips flying.
I want you to see how easy it would be putting your biscuit back together again.
It proved too hard a task for most. And the reason behind it all?
When they go out to mine, they can't put the land back together because it's destroyed. When miners go down into the mine, if they get a lot out or all of it out, it'll just all cave in and won't be much good to us.
But chocolate chip mining isn't the only thing they get up to at Cahaiba. Students today planted 31 trees as part of an ongoing program to beautify the area. They say it's child's play.
And you put dynamic lifter in the bottom, about a handful, then you put the tree in, pack it down and put soil around it, and then water it and put mulch fairly thick around it, but not near the base of the tree.
And indeed it wasn't that hard, but next time I'll come dressed for the job.
Staff at the Wyong Courthouse say they deal with 3 or 4 domestic violence matters each day. Figures released by the Bureau of Crime Statistics show the area to be the 5th worst per capita in the state, with a rate of more than 111 apprehended violence orders issued per 100,000 people. That compares badly with the affluent areas on Sydney's North Shore, but local police say it might only represent the tip of the iceberg.
There would be a lot of cases I'd imagine that police don't become involved in simply because the other people are not aware of what's going on in the home.
When police are called in, they usually refer the victims to the area's only women's refuge.
We're unable to show you the facilities at the refuge or even hint at its location. That's kept a secret to protect the people who are forced out of their homes by violence.
We really are talking about life and death situations here. People in the community don't appreciate it. They prefer to not look at it and pretend it's not happening.
And it seems the government would prefer to forget about the problem as well. Councillor Nancy Bess was last year forced to turn away more than 500 women and probably twice as many children from the only shelter that serves the Central Coast's rapidly expanding north. It's a problem common throughout the state.
1 year, the stats showed that there were about 23,000 families turned away from the 53 refuges throughout New South Wales. I couldn't tell you what it would be in square kilometres, but yes, we do cover a very wide area.
Councillors say the women who are turned away are often forced to return home. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
Conditions for police in the Hunter aren't that much better. At Hamilton Police Station, 7 officers share this room. That's an area just 4 metres by 4.5 metres. Police say conditions have been bad for at least 3 years. However, there is some relief planned with new demountable officers soon to be occupied.
It's nothing but a band-aid treatment. They're only looking at the short-term prospects instead of the long-term goals.
New demountables at Mayfield have eased the squeeze, but 14 officers are still sharing this space. According to the Police Association, conditions at Cessnock and Morisset are also tight, and local police may soon have to follow the King's Cross lead and demand decent working conditions. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The aircraft attached to 75 Squadron at RAF Base Tyndall at Katherine in the Northern Territory disappeared while on a routine training mission at about 11 a.m. It was last seen over Groot Island by another jet which was forced back to base for fuel. Missing is Flying Officer Cameron Peter Conroy, aged 26. He'd flown Mackie trainers in Western Australia before undergoing an FA-18 conversion course at RAF Base Williamtown. He joined 75 Squadron late last year. The squadron is a regular visitor to Williamtown, taking part in manoeuvres there earlier this year.
Hot off the press, the East Maitland Public Schools Computathon News captured the attention of these Year 2 students. The production of the paper was part of the school's attempt to familiarise students with the computer age.
We've produced a newspaper, a tabloid newspaper, 36 pages, contains stories, drawings, advertisements, articles about the school and about the children.
The newspaper is a record of the school's events over the last 12 months. The retirement of their long-serving principal, Jack Green, made the front page. According to promising journalist Bree Hudson, contributing to the newspaper was a worthwhile experience.
I think it's improved my writing skills a lot, and I think it showed me the responsibility of being a journalist when I grow up.
For other students, the rewards were more simple.
I feel very proud of myself because it's the first time my story's been in the paper.
The money raised from advertisements and the computathon will go toward buying equipment for the school. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
With the Central Coast's building industry in a slump, the area's apprentices have been left with a lot of time on their hands.
No work at all since January 8 when I got retrenched, and since then the apprenticeship indentures have been put on hold.
January, I got laid off. The guy I worked for went out bankrupt. Since then there's been nothing in the carpentry at all.
I've been going into the CES, but there's mostly just hairdressing and fully qualified workers they're looking for, and nothing for apprentices.
In a bid to get some young people off the dole and back on the job, Wyong Group apprentices sought and won a New South Wales Department of Housing contract to build 4 houses over the next 6 months. Unfortunately, no one is willing to pay the $54,000 needed to employ project supervisors.
To pay people to sit on their tail and do nothing, you lose the motivation that our apprentices have. They are a motivated group of young people. They really want to get on with their trade. Most of them have invested at least 3 years already in their trades training, and they're keen to get on with it.
While the Federal Department of Education, Employment and Training continues to debate the merits of the scheme, more than 50 apprentices remain out of work, drawing the dole instead of paying tax.
At the present moment, they are a net drain to the community. If they are back in work, they'll be earning a wage, they'll be paying taxes, and frankly, I would believe it's revenue positive for the federal government to fund the project.
If you remember the Civic Theatre like this, then you can help with its restoration. It's estimated $12 million is needed to upgrade the theatre to 1990 standards, while maintaining the grand architectural style the theatre is famous for. $8 million of that will come from state and federal governments, a further $2 million from Newcastle Council, and the rest from public donations. To help with the fundraising, theatregoers past and present are being asked to cast back their minds.
Or of happy memories. I mean, I've met a lot of people who've told me that they did their courting in the back stalls of the Civic when it was a cinema. But anything that is of interest, or perhaps old photographs which relate to the theatre or to that time, or people who might have had some connection in the theatre, perhaps they worked in the theatre.
Theatre manager Louis Van Eysen believes that with 80,000 people passing through the Civic each year, there must be many memories and much memorabilia. He even has a few stories of his own.
A young woman from somewhere up in the Hunter, she snagged her jeans on a nail on the chair and ripped the jeans right down, practically from backside down to the knee, and then came out and found it very embarrassing to show me the rip in the jeans.
The treasure house of memories will be used for promotional purposes in the months and even years it takes to raise the necessary funds, paving the way for a new generation of theatregoers with their own stories to tell.
A futuristic fanfare greeted the former Minister for Science and Technology, the Honourable Barry Jones, who officially opened the school Science Expo. For 1 week, scientific, technological and industrial displays will be on show as part of a program to encourage young people to consider science as a career. While the expo will only last a few days, a permanent laboratory has been set up to give present and future students a hands-on first taste of the more interesting aspects of science.
This is very important, I think, to get people really genuinely excited in science, to understand its relevance to human development. We've got to see science as part of the culture.
The students themselves have helped set up the lab, and they know better than most what will spark the interest of their peers.
I think it just attracts interest, really, because lots of kids think science is too hard, but they don't look at the basics. Like, this is really the basics of science.